Hey everyone, so I'll be going ahead and starting the debate um, discussion here today. That way we can talk about kind of what's going on. As you may also know, there was the missile strike from Iran onto Israel. So that's going to play important to this CBS debate. But interesting, just kind of how this debate went. A few things that we can talk about and just some general impressions. I don't think Waltz looked very good in front of the camera. I feel like he looked kind of like a deer in the headlights. I don't think he looked very photogenic. That's no knock against him. That's just the way it looked, especially against JD Vance. A few issues that kind of stood out to me. I'm going to try to share my screen here so that we can see this. Um, but I think it's important. First off, I wanted to start with kind of some of the important information that they're going to discuss with the Appalachian Hurricane Helene issues. And so someone being from there, I've had firsthand knowledge was in the area when all this happened. So it's gonna be interesting to kind of hear what they have to say and kind of some of what I've heard with some boots on the ground. We'll go ahead and play it.
And my heart goes out to the folks that are down there in contact with the governors. I serve as co-chair of the Council of Governors as we work together on these emergency managements. Governors know no partisanship. They work together so all of the governors and the emergency responders are on the ground. Those happen on the front end. The federal government comes in, makes sure they're there to that we recover, but we're still in that phase where we need to make sure that they're staying there, staying focused. Now, look, coming back to the climate change issue, there's no doubt this thing roared onto the scene faster and stronger than anything we've seen.
So just a little bit talking about that, I'll play a little bit of what Vance had to say too, because it's also important.
Reshore as much American manufacturing as possible, and you
Chair of the Council of Governors as we work together on these emergency managements. Governor,
or ask yourself at home, when was the last time, I'm 40 years old, when was the last time that an American president didn't have a major conflict break out? The only answer is during the 4 years that Donald Trump was president.
Gentlemen, we have a lot to get to. Nora? Margaret, thank you. Let's turn now to Hurricane Helene. The storm has become one of the deadliest on record. More than 160 people are dead, hundreds more are missing. Scientists say climate change makes these hurricanes larger, stronger, and more deadly because of the historic rainfall. Senator Vance, according to CBS News polling, 7 in 10 Americans and more than 60% of Republicans under the age of 45 favor the U.S. taking steps to try and reduce climate change. Senator, what responsibility would the Trump administration have to try and reduce the impact of climate change? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Sure. So first of all, let's start with the hurricane because it's an unbelievable, unspeakable human tragedy. I just today actually a photograph of 2 grandparents on a roof with a 6-year-old child. And it was the last photograph ever taken of them because the roof collapsed and those innocent people lost their lives. And I'm sure Governor Waltz joins me in saying our hearts go out to those innocent people, our prayers go out to them, and we want as robust and aggressive as a federal response as we can get to save as many lives as possible. And then, of course, afterwards, to help the people in those communities rebuild. I mean, these are communities that I love. Some of them I know very personally in Appalachia, all across the Southeast. They need their government to do their job. And I commit that when Donald Trump is president again, the government will put the citizens of this country first when they suffer from a disaster. And Nora, you asked about climate change. I think this is a very important issue. Look, a lot of people are justifiably worried about all these crazy.
So kind of leaving it there. I thought the issue probably should have stayed more on the FEMA and federal response that they had going on. I think there was really a missed opportunity for all of them to discuss that. Especially, it's very impactful into the areas that he talked about. I think he should have kept more on the hurricane and less on the actual climate change part of it. I think that would have helped him out, especially played more to his strong suits. I think Harris or Waltz should have done better with talking about what Biden is going to be doing. So I think there was major missed opportunity, and I think it really kind of talks a lot about what they could have done and should have done and things like that. So I think there's a lot missing there. I think one thing that you kind of saw in that clip briefly is just that they did talk a lot about you know, they agree with each other, shared a lot of commonalities and interests and things like that, which I think from a policy standpoint, I think, and perception standpoint, I think it was a far cry of what we saw in the presidential. And I think most people showed that that was favorable and showed that how people really wanted more of it to occur. So leading into some of the other topics, going into, let's see. So some of the other stuff that I thought was really interesting was with the economics, kind of really showed some of the same parts of it. I thought going to the immigration question, think that um, I think that kind of certain parts kind of missed. I think JD didn't do a great job of especially some of the questions that were there. But I think he kind of did good on staying on message, playing to the strengths of that argument that Republicans have. Um, so I think there was some interesting parts there. I don't think really changed too much. I think it was interesting, especially there was the one that people will talk about, being fact checked about Springfield and things like that. But that's going to be interesting. Um, we'll see in the media in the next few days. But I think overall, he kind of did well. I think Waltz kind of did the same thing. I think JD probably should have attacked Harris more and things like that. But I think Waltz kind of sparred a little bit of how Trump kind of dodged the question with the or not dodged the question, but dodged the issue uh with the immigration bill that they were trying to pass. So and it says here, I'm reading out the transcript. Um, law enforcement asked for the bill. They helped craft it. Just interesting parts there that I think could have been much better. And I think the fact checking definitely it's an interesting line. Um, so I think that was kind of in the middle. I think you'll probably have a wash on that. Um, next, you can go to the economy and the IRA. Like I said, a lot of the kind of the same stuff. I thought that was interesting. Kind of the immigration question, or not immigration, the healthcare question. I thought that Vance did probably a good job of kind of bringing this back more towards how Republicans were most likely going to view it in reality of that, in 10 years after, you're not going to change it. So it definitely different policy messages from what you saw before with Trump. But I think it's a good idea that they were able to kind of say that some of the stuff isn't going to happen, and they're really not going to have much of a change to that. Um, but yeah, so that was interesting, and I think that was good, and just kind of shows the shift. I think in certain parts back towards this more liberal progressive. That's kind of why I've got this channel being as it is, because I think that's kind of where this realignment's going to go. I think you're going to see a lot more of these, um, traditional conservatives like someone like JD Vance coming back and sharing some of these liberal positions like we see with unions, we see with families, and tax cuts for the middle class, as well as some of the healthcare questions. So I think once you start talking about reproductive rights, let me go to 440. I think this was a good question.
Comes to abortion. Former President Trump said in the last debate that you believe abortion, quote, in.
Also, I just want to say that's what I'm talking about, where you just look not very photogenic. Let's go back just when he's listening to these questions.
Comes to abortion. Former President Trump said in the last.
He just looks sad. So, I think that's definitely there.
That you believe abortion, quote, in the 9th month is absolutely fine. Yes or no? Is that what you support? I'll give you 2 minutes.
That's not what the bill says, but look, this issue is what's on everyone's mind. Donald Trump put this all into motion. He brags about how great it was that he put the judges in and overturned Roe versus Wade. 52 years of personal autonomy. And then he tells us, oh,
So let's go to Vance's answer. I think he answers really, really well, especially for where the new conservative movement is heading.
Care about, and I know a lot of Americans don't agree with everything that I've ever said on this topic. And I grew up in a working class family in a neighborhood where I knew a lot of young women who had unplanned pregnancies and decided to terminate those pregnancies because they feel like they didn't have any other options. And one of them is actually very dear to me, and I know she's watching tonight, and I love you. And she told me something a couple years ago that she felt like if she hadn't had that abortion, that it would have destroyed her life because she was in an abusive relationship. And I think that what I take from that as a Republican who proudly wants to protect innocent life in this country, who proudly wants to protect the vulnerable, is that my party, we've got to do so much better of a job at earning the American people's trust back on this issue where they frankly just don't trust us. And I think that's one of the things that Donald Trump and I are endeavoring to do.
So that's kind of one of the areas I think if that's where the Republican movement goes, they're essentially conceding the issue, and shifting it into more of their ideological playing field. It kind of pushes a lot of the social conservatives out. But I think in terms of long-term viability of the political party, I think that's where it needs to be. Like, hey, we disagree on abortion, but we are going to be pro-family. We're going to provide all these opportunities. We're going to protect people, and so that they can continue their life and have kids. And honestly, that's something that I agree with. I'm not pro-choice in the sense that I think that's where it should go. Right, it should be a last-ditch alternative or a last-ditch effort, and it should be something that is as Bill Clinton said, safe, legal, and rare. So I think it's something that I think it's a good place of where they're going. I think if that policy that he's talking about is paired with you got to spend the money to do it. So I think if it's paired with that, I think you'll see good. And I think that's going to be the shortcoming is that the economic policy and taxation policy for Republicans is going to start falling apart because there's no way to pay for these programs from their traditional point of views, whereas Democrats are like, hey, we'll raise the money to do it. But I think that's where Republicans are going to be, and I think that's where it should be. And for me, like, hey, we're going to raise money to prevent these things from happening. I'm all for that, and I think a lot more people would be for that. And I think with where they're going, that's a good place. One thing I thought was interesting is let's see. Yeah, I think it would be. This was one that I think Waltz did not do a very good job at his guns, and I think as a gun owner, I think it shows that he's, as Vance has this issue with abortion and Trump, they're on different sides of it. And this is where you see it with Waltz. It's the same thing. So it's the same issue where there's this dissidence, but I think it just shows that one's having issues messaging it with it on the others. So let's play that.
Conversation. I 100% believe that Senator Vance hates it when these kids, it's abhorrent and it breaks your heart. I agree with that. But that's not far enough when we know there are things that work. I've spent time in Finland and seen some Finnish schools. They don't have this happen, even though they have a high gun ownership rate in the country. There are reasonable things that we can do to make a difference. It's not infringing on your Second Amendment. And the idea to have some of these weapons out there, it just doesn't make any sense. Kamala Harris, as an attorney general, worked on this issue. She knows that it's there. No one's trying to scaremonger and say we're taking your guns, but I ask all of you out there, do you want your schools hardened to look like a fort? Is that what we have to go when we know there's countries around the world that their children aren't practicing these types of drills? They're being kids. We owe it to them to get a fix. These are things that shouldn't be that difficult. You can still keep your firearms and we can make a difference. We have to. If you're listening tonight, this breaks your heart.
Senator.
Tim, first of all, I didn't know that your 17-year-old witnessed a shooting. I'm sorry about that, and I hope
appreciate
you're doing
you
okay.
saying so.
Christ have mercy. It is awful, and I appreciate what Tim said actually about Finland, because I do think it illustrates some of the frankly weird differences between our own country's gun violence problem and Finland. Is okay. First of all, we have way higher rates of mental health abuse or mental health substance abuse. We have
100%
way higher
agree
rates
with
of
Nancy.
depression, way higher rates of anxiety. We
think
unfortunately
it's just
have a
interesting
mental
that,
health
you know,
crisis in this country that I really do think that
previously
we
this
get
was
to
wasn't
the
an
root
issue
causes
that
of, because I don't think it's
Republicans
the only
steered
reason why
towards
we have
this
such a
more
bad gun
recently.
violence problem, but I
Um,
do think it's a big piece of it.
but
Another
I think
driver
the
of
issue
gun
is
violence epidemics,
this.
especially that affecting our kids, it doesn't earn as many headlines, but it's the terrible gun violence problem in a lot of our big cities. And this is why we
Sometimes it just is the guns. It's just the
Yeah.
guns. And there are
This
things
is
that you
this
can
is the
do
issue
about
that,
it. But I do
have
think that this is
with
one,
his part.
and
I think
this is a
he
healthy
as a
conversation.
gun owner did
I
so much
think there's
better.
a capacity to find solutions on this that work, protect Second Amendment, protect our children. That's our priority.
Gentlemen, thank you. Margaret. Thank you, Nora.
And it kind of goes back to the whole argument that, you know, conservatives say is, you know, guns don't kill people, people kill people. I think that's true, and I think that just shows it was a huge miss with Waltz. I'm not going to do too much of the video sharing remaining. Just some of the things that I think were interesting. But yeah, so I thought the lack of housing and those kind of things that he was being pushed on definitely needed some more help. But yeah, so yeah, that's pretty much it. There's the whole democracy thing. I think that's kind of running its course, and I think you know, Democrats shouldn't make that a central issue. Um, Something that I think is going to die you know, this is going to be the last election you're going to talk about whether or not good or bad. But yeah, so that's all I have. Those are the kind of big thought points that I have for the debate. I think it's gonna be interesting to see how Israel responds. I think I think I said this before. Any escalation is not good for the Biden Harris administration. Just because it puts them on the defensive, and most of the people who talk about this Israel stuff, it's all you know, all they care about is there is war, there isn't war, you know, and I think that you know, that's gonna definitely move the swing into the Republicans' direction. I think it's gonna get tighter. I don't think this really moved the needle, but I don't think Kamala should do another debate. I think Harris or Trump should, but he won't. So I think you're not gonna see any major needle movers. I think it ended up being a tie at the end, and I probably agree with that listening to it. But yeah, so those are just some of the big things that I kind of took out of everything, and that's all that I have. We'll see what happens the next few weeks with Iran and Israel and some of the upcoming numbers. So hope everyone has a good weekend, and I'll talk to you later. Thanks.